Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Windows in the Cloud, this time about AVD for hybrid environments. And Steve is joining me from our PM team to tell you everything about it. So let's get started. Hey, hi Steve, welcome on a Windows in the Cloud episode, finally. Can you introduce to the audience what you do at Microsoft?
Thanks, Christiaan. Yeah, I'm Steve Downs. I am a principal product manager on the Windows Cloud team, where I focus on bringing Azure Virtual Desktop and our other Windows Cloud products on premises. Before that, I've been at Microsoft for 8 years now, where I focused on everything from our U.S. government business to FS Logic. So I'm really happy, though, to be here talking to you about Azure Virtual Desktop for hybrid environments.
Yeah, no, I really look forward to that. And we've been working for a long time together. And FS Logic's even that eventually got me into Microsoft. Hey, very excited. AVD for hybrid environments. Like, what does it mean in terms of customer value?
Right.
Like that.
Yeah. So AVD for hybrid environments is all about giving customers flexibility to bring Azure Virtual Desktop on premises wherever they need to use it today. It essentially, the AVD service remains in Azure, but you can put your apps and desktops on premises wherever you need to do them, whether it's in your data center or at a storage. It's all about that flexibility.
So this has been a customer ask for a long time. I remember we talked about it, right? So it's now finally they're very customer obsessed. And what is the kind of type of scenarios you see this being a great fit for customers that are on the journey to Windows Cloud, Windows 365, AVD, and things like that?
Yeah. So last summer, we went on this kind of around the world tour. We talked to 30 plus customers and MVPs and partners, I think something like 60 hours of conversations. And they all kind of told us the same thing. They love Windows 365. They love Azure Virtual Desktop. They want to move to the cloud, but there are all these scenarios keeping them on premises or just, they're not quite ready to move. So it might be things like data sovereignty where they have local laws keeping their data in their country, or it might be just compliance for, financial data, whatever it might be, or it could be high performance, they need like data, or it could be, they have high latency at a remote site and they need to keep the apps and data close to where the user is just for those performance requirements. But at the end of the day, it's all about, they just need, the really common scenario people are saying is, I have a data center full of all of this hardware. I cannot move to the cloud yet. Help me start using AVD today, and then I will move to the cloud at the pace that fits my needs, or I'll keep some of it on-prem, or I'll do both. A lot of customers, they want to use Windows 365, but they might have a handful of scenarios that have to stay on premises, and that's what we're enabling for them.
Yeah, I love that because we've seen many customers shifting to Windows 365 because of the simplicity and queue management, but there's still that, what you said, right? A part of a use case, a scenario that still requires that certain on-premises workloads stay on premises as well. And on-premises is with an S, right?
So sure.
Yeah.
With an S.
That's an inside joke for the people that know.
Yep.
Hey, Azure Arc is needed, right? And what are kind of the hypervisors that you can use as a customer with existing hypervisor solutions?
Sure. So Azure Arc is Microsoft's Azure service that extends Azure to on-prem scenarios. It's really quite simple. You what we call Arc enable these devices. You install the Arc agent, and from that moment, if you install it on, say, your on-premises VM hosted on Hyper-V, that VM is then projected back up into Azure as an Azure resource. So you could do things like apply Azure policy. You can even pay for Windows Server now with Windows Server PayGo using Azure Arc. And now with AVD for hybrid environments, once you've Arc enabled those devices, you can install the AVD extension that will download all of the AVD components, install them for you, of course, and then join that device to an AVD host pool. So it's, that full, Azure Arc is how Microsoft brings Azure to the edge, and that is what AVD is integrating with.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that kind of tells the story of like Azure Virtual Desktop, Azure, and hybrid kind of solutions for other services in Microsoft too, right? That use Azure Arc. What are the operating systems, like the OSs that are supported as part of this solution?
Great question. So we are supporting all of the operating systems that customers are used to using on-premises today are supported with Azure Virtual Desktop for hybrid environments. So that's Windows Server 2016 or newer. So of course, up to 2025. And then Windows 11 and Windows 10 Enterprise are both supported on premises.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I bet most people watching here love to hear that as they are in the transition to the cloud, and this will definitely help them in releasing some of, hey, need to make a final decision for everything at once. Just do it in brackets, right? That's what we see more customers are doing, and they're very successful with that too. What are the other on-premises capabilities that like we Windows Cloud offer to customers in that journey to like Windows 365? And
So our other offering is called Azure Virtual Desktop for Azure Local, and that integrates with Microsoft's on-premises Azure capability, Azure Local. Azure Local is, think of that as Azure on-premises. It's an on-premises Azure platform managed completely from Azure. So with AVD for Azure Local, you get full VM provisioning. For example, you can log into the AVD portal, provision VMs down into your Azure Local cluster. It requires a validated Azure Local hardware, but really, designed for those store scenarios, those small scenarios where you just need a handful of users on premises.
yeah, I remember as well, like Azure Local requires a certain like server OEM based solution, right? And this new solution that you've been working on with the team expands to existing hypervisors.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So that's great to kind of pick and choose the best for your.
If you're looking for, I want to go fully Microsoft Cloud Native, Azure Local is a great solution for you. But if you're a customer who has, I talk to customers with, hundreds of thousands of users, 6 data centers full of hardware, they don't want to, it's just not practical for them to replace all of that hardware. They want to use what they have already. And that's where AVD for hybrid environments comes into play. We are completely hypervisor agnostic. It's just, we operate inside the operating system. So anywhere you can host a Windows, those operating systems we mentioned, Windows Server or Windows 11 or 10, you can deploy AVD for hybrid environments. It's all about that flexibility.
Yeah, and of course, with the combination of like the remote desktop protocol enhancements we did and the Windows app, it all comes together. And for the end user, they can kind of use the same app and such as well.
Absolutely. So yeah, so it's all the user experience is all identical, whether you're using Windows 365 or Azure Virtual Desktop or AVD for hybrid environments. The users are all logging in through the Windows app. So that means, you might start the users using AVD for hybrid environments, but when you're ready to move them to Windows 365, that end user experience does not need to change. Yeah, they just keep using the same Windows app. And then, of course, we'll have the users that might need to move to Windows 365 or that are going to move to Windows 365. But we also have, that lets you manage a single user experience for those users, plus the ones that might need to stay on premises for whatever reasons, keeping that user on-prem.
That's so cool because that really tells the story of unification of Windows Cloud and the Windows app being in front and center, right?
Exactly.
So that's probably a nice segue into, I want to see it.
Okay.
I want to see how it works behind the scenes. So did you prepare a demo for the audience?
Yep, we prepared a demo for you. Erez from the dev team is here to share that.
Okay, let's go.
Hi, my name is Erez Bar Tal, and I'm an engineer working on Azure Virtual Desktop Hybrid. In this demo, I walk through the end-to-end process of onboarding an on-premise virtual machine as a session host into AVD Hybrid. By the end of the walkthrough, you'll be able to open the Windows app, select your workspace and host pool, and connect to one of the session hosts in that pool. Onboarding an on-premise virtual machine to an AVD Hybrid involves the following steps. 1. Ensure the virtual machine meets all requirements, including running a supported operating system, which is Windows Server or Windows Enterprise Client, and being Enter ID joined. Create the host pool along with associated components, including a managed identity. Grant the managed identity the required permission to Azure Arc, and create the AVD application work and workspace. Install the Azure Arc agent on the virtual machine to register it as an Arc-enabled server in Azure. And 4. Deploy the Cloud Device extension to associate the virtual machine with the host pool and enable it to function as an AVD session host. In this demo, I will show how to onboard a Windows 11 VM into AVD Hybrid. We have a Windows 11 VM running in VMware ES6i hypervisor. Before we start, the VM must be Entra joined. We will start by creating a resource group that will contain the Arc-enabled server entities. Once the script complete running, you can check for the resource group properties in the portal. Next, we will create a new host pool with its relevant entities, managed entity, which will have a reader permission on the Arc resource group, application group, and workspace. We can now go to the portal and examine the new host pool that we've created. We can see that currently it has no session host, but we can see the managed entity that was created and also the application group. Now, let's add a new assignment to the application group. It will later allow me to sign in into one of the session hosts. The next two steps must be executed directly on the VM we want to onboard to AVD Hybrid. Next, we will Arc enable the virtual machine. This process creates an Azure resource that represents the on-prem VM. The script downloads the Azure Arc Connected Machine Agent installer and runs it on the machine. On Windows Server 2025, you can alternatively use the built-in GUI installer or generate the onboarding script directly from the Azure Arc portal. Once installation completes, we can see the new resource on the Arc Blade Azure portal. Next, we will install the AVD Hybrid extension. Because this is an asynchronous operation, it can take a few minutes after deployment before the session host shows up in the host pool blade. While the installation is in progress, you can track the status of the VM extension blade in the Azure portal. Once the extension installation completes, you can check the installation status both in the script output or on the VM extension blade. It takes time for the session host to be available in the host pool. Hence, currently we do not see any available machines in the host pool blade. After a few minutes, we can see that the host pool contains the new session host with no active sessions. We can also see that the new session host passes all its health checks. Now, we will connect to the session host using the Windows app. After refreshing the app feed, we can see the new workspace and the new session host. We will connect to the session host with our organizational credential. On the VM, you can see that it's connected with my user identity. Going back to the session host blade, we can see that there is an active session. That concludes our demo. All the scripts will be available online. Thank you.
So that was a great demo. And now I want to know, like, hey, what are the partners involved here as part of this announcement?
Yeah. So we have 4 great launch partners joining us at launch. We've got ControlUp, Login BSI, Nerdio, and Nutanix. They're all building integrations with AVD for hybrid environments, whether it's, VM provisioning that, we don't have an AVD native today. Launch partners are building that. They're all picking different hypervisors to deploy. Obviously, Nutanix has their Acropolis hypervisor, but I suggest everybody reach out to those 4 launch partners and get details from them on exactly what they're building.
That's awesome. And how can people learn more? Like, they learn, of course, a lot today, but how they can kind of learn more about the exact details?
Sure.
Is there a blog you recommend?
Yeah, definitely. We'll put it up on the screen here for everybody. We've got a link for everybody to go to and read more about AVD for hybrid environments, links to our documentation, and all of that. So just check it out.
Sounds good. We will put up an AKMS link for you. So, Steve, how can people stay in touch with you after this, like watching this episode?
Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn.
And thanks for being here. It was way overdue. We should get you back like in the next coming months and talk maybe about other things you're working on.
Let's do it. We can talk about app attach.
Let's do it. Hey, thank you for watching, and hope to see you back next time.